What is going on, everyone? Good Mike Work Commentaries back at you for your WWE Raw review for February 21st, 2022. We got a lot to talk about because it is officially WrestleMania season. We just had Elimination Chamber this past Saturday, which I was not here to do a review for, and I wasn't even expecting to be up tonight, but I thought tonight was a pretty good night for me to kind of catch up on everything. A lot of questions about if Cody Rhodes is going to be on the show tonight, stuff like that. Plus, we have a lot to catch up on in terms of Elimination Chamber and some of the Cody Rhodes news. And, of course, WrestleMania is on the horizon, and a few more seeds tonight were planted, especially with Edge, who came down and laid out an open challenge, dropped hints of AJ Styles, dropped hints of Finn Balor, and dropped hints of Cody Rhodes. I think it's under the assumption of most of us that he's probably going to be facing AJ. That's the match that I want. I think that's the match that both guys deserve. However, I suppose they could go anywhere with this. We also have Brock and Roman set for title now. Bianca Belair and Ronda Rousey are set to challenge for titles as well. And Bobby Lashley is going to be out for several months. Now, they're still teasing that he could show up for his championship match set for Madison Square Garden, which I didn't even know this show was coming up. I don't know if this is on Peacock or if this is just a live event or what. But they are still speaking as if he might make the show, but he's undergoing the concussion protocol. So likely he's been written off TV. The word is he's been injured since the Royal Rumble, which explains a lot in the Elimination Chamber in terms of how we saw that match go, and Bobby Lashley basically being knocked out CM Punk style back in, 2008 or whatever it was when he was kicked out of the Scramble match and didn't even get a chance to really compete in it. But nobody really, I just thought that was their way of protecting Lashley to make sure that they moved the belt to Brock without beating and compromising him. But then when the story comes out that he's been injured for quite some time, now it makes a little bit more sense. So we're going to try to unpack all that as we go through here. Talk to you guys a little bit about the upcoming video schedule. Then I'll talk a little bit about Elimination Chamber. A couple of little news tidbits we need to get into as well. And then we'll run through the results of Raw. Tonight's show was not bad. Good wrestling, great main event. A couple of high spots throughout the show, but overall it felt like it really dragged on and it was taking a while. And I think so many of us were expecting, possibly Cody, possibly Veer. We knew the Jake Paul shit was going to happen. I felt like tonight could have had a little bit more going on. Fallout from the Elimination Chamber. Brand new champion was crowned. We had a 24/7 title change tonight as well. But the show overall felt largely typical of Monday Night Raw. So we'll kind of go through all of that, and we'll take a look at what the WrestleMania card now looks like and discuss all sorts of possible theoretical matches that we could speculate on for WrestleMania or anything in terms of, Cody Rhodes or any other surprises that WWE has up their sleeves. So it's good to see you guys here. I'm glad you're here. Hit the thumbs up button if you don't mind. And if you're not a subscriber, please do that for me. I would appreciate it. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat real quick, knock out these super chats, and then we will get down to business. I also want to make sure you can hear me. It's good to see you. All right. Yeah. If you guys couldn't hear me, you'd be telling me by now. So a lot of stuff to get into. So we're going to kind of jump into it in just a second. First of all, I want to thank Divine Ricks for the $5. Hey, Greg, hope everything is okay, buddy. I was wondering who would be best to induct Undertaker into the Hall of Fame, Vince, HBK, Steve Austin, or Kane. Thank you for that, Divine, because I forgot to write Taker in my notes. Let me write him down again in case we bring him back up. But yeah, it was also announced when was it announced? Was it announced at Chamber or was it some other day? I forgot. That The Undertaker would in fact be going into the Hall of Fame this year in 2022. He is going to be the first inductee that they've announced. They have not announced anybody else yet. There has still been some chatter about possibly Undertaker being the only inductee. I personally kind of think no, but they could do that, especially since the Hall of Fame, again, is going to be weird. They're doing some weird 2-for-1 thing, that SmackDown and Hall of Fame combo show, which terrifies me because they've jumbled up the WrestleMania weekend schedule so much now, it's like we've lost the good old night before WrestleMania Hall of Fame that was so awesome for so many years. And it's been destroyed over the last few, back to 2019 when they had that horrible new setup and Bret Hart was attacked. Then COVID hit. Then we had the Thunderdome bullshit last year. So now the Hall of Fame is kind of back, but it looks like it's going to suck just like they all have been over the past few years. So that's a little bit disappointing, but we're going to talk more about Undertaker later. But there's only one person to induct the Undertaker, in my opinion, and that's Vince McMahon. Kane is fine. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley, lots of guys have had deep, deep history with Undertaker, but there's only one, I think. I almost, in a lot of ways, wish that Vince wouldn't have inducted Austin. because if Vince was just going to induct his icons, then you'd think he would do Hogan and Austin and probably Taker. But I think Austin got inducted by Vince due to their feud with each other. This is different. I think Vince should induct Undertaker because nobody has matched his longevity. Nobody has matched his loyalty. And, how he's basically been the embodiment of WWE for 30 plus years. And to me, that warrants only one guy inducting you, and that's Vince McMahon. He's an old man now. He mumbles when he talks. Who knows if we can even understand him when he gets up there. But in terms of who is the best person, you can't unconvince me that it's not Vince. It's definitely him. But if it's Shawn, if it's Taker, if it's Bruce, if it's anybody else, or Shawn or Triple H, I should say, or even Bruce, maybe even AJ Styles, possibly Edge, Mick Foley. Lots of guys have had history and run-ins with Taker throughout the years because he's been around for so long. So when you're trying to narrow it down to just one person, Vince is number one, and he's number 1A. Number 2's Kane. And other than that, I'd say, if he was still alive, Paul Bearer. But in my mind, it's Vince and Vince only. So we might get back into that as we go through here. But thank you for that, Divine. Also good to see Josh Rodrigo, Sam, Jay Lambo, Metalhead Jake, FRGN, Nick Musser, and Deshaun Robinson. Nice. Got monkey wrenches in the house. Big J, Spartan Sprinkles, Sonny, Andy, Monique, Yachiro, Sonic, and Deshaun Robinson with the $5 drop. Hey, Greg, it's awesome to hear from you after the terrible news you received in recent days. Prayers go out to your family. Thank you for that, Deshaun. I'm going to touch on that here in just a second, let you guys know what's going on. And also, Michael is in the house, Steven, James, and Population. Good to see you, man. Met that guy at SummerSlam. He's awesome. Denny Downbad, Vape Lord. Right on. Glad you guys are here. Like I said, thumbs up button, subscribe, all that stuff. Before we get into the news, I want to let you know about the channel, what's going to happen here in the next few days. This will likely be my last video for probably a week, maybe more. I wasn't even expecting to come up here today, but the situation I'm dealing with is a forever changing situation. And for those of you who know and follow me on social media and have checked out my YouTube page where I've also put comments up and made posts about this, my buddy, my little 12-year-old cat, he's 12 and a half. He's been with me for 11 years and he's my best friend. He has fallen terminally ill. And he got sick about a month ago, and I knew it was bad. He got diagnosed with a fungal infection called Cryptococcus. It's horrible, and it fucks cats up, fucks a lot of animals up. And, it kind of operates like HIV sort of. They get the virus when they're very young because he was brought into the animal shelter as a stray at 1.5 years. So he kind of had this in him, and it just needed to come out. 2 years ago, he had a bout with it, and he recovered from it. They gave him medicine. He recovered. He got back full recovery, but it returned. And kind of knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was going to go as quick as it did. So on Friday, I basically got the green light from the vet. They basically said if it was my cat, I'd put them down now type of thing. So he's terminal. There's no coming back from it. So I was expecting to deal with that today or yesterday or whatever. But, they've assured me that he's not suffering. He's not in any pain. He's just kind of really, really lethargic and, probably feels a little sick. He's a little wobbly on his feet, but he's still very alert. He can see me. He can hear. He meows for food. He still eats. He can climb in this litter robot, self-cleaning litter box contraption that I have. He can still climb in there and not lose his balance. So, I feel like I can wait a couple of days. So I'm just playing it by ear. I very well might make the phone call tomorrow. I just don't know, but I think I'm going to maybe push it till the end of the week. And then when that happens, I'm going to need a few days to recover from that. But on Friday, when I got this news, I kind of thought all that would be going on right now and you guys wouldn't hear from me probably until the weekend. I probably am going to skip Wednesday's watch along on Dynamite until I kind of figure out what's happening. But today I figured, I'm just here with him all day. I can come up for an hour and a half and talk to you guys. It kind of helps to be with you guys because, one, I don't want to say good thing, but one thing that's helpful and comforting about losing a pet is that everybody can relate. All of you in the chat, I'm sure, either went through this as a kid with a childhood pet. Maybe you've gone through it yourself with a dog or a cat or something. I'd say 90% of you, can you relate to what I'm going through? So it sucks and it's hard and it just sucks. So I was kind of hoping he'd make it to 15 and 16 and I have a few more years with him. But, unfortunately, life is life. So it's my responsibility as his dad to make the right decision for him and just to be there for him for whatever he needs. So I'm listening to him. I know my animal. I know my pet. He's going to tell me when he needs it to happen. And I've got a guy on call that's going to come right to the house and do the deed right here in his own bed, just with me holding him. So it will be, a good goodbye and things like that. But I'm kind of dealing with that and it fucking sucks. But I still got another cat. Little Tito is 9 years old, so he's going to have some behavioral changes too when he realizes his brother is gone. So we're going to be dealing with that here in the house, and you guys have been awesome. Thank you for all the DMs. Thank you for all the love on Twitter and YouTube and everything like this. I mean, pets are hard. Pets are our family too. You know, in the last couple of years, I've lost my dad and a couple of grandmothers, and their deaths were no harder or easier than him. You know, I mean, he's going to affect me just as bad. And it's pretty much the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And that's an honest truth. So that's how much pets can mean to us. And it just blows. So because of all of this, video schedule is going to be weird. Not quite sure when everything's going to happen. And then when I can recover from it and come back up here and, you know, resume life. So, you know, maybe 1 week from today, I'll come back and do a Raw review. Not sure about Saturday for the Winged Eagle. That's a little iffy. Just don't know at this point. So I appreciate all your patience and all of this. So, you know, like I said, in the meantime, just subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Twitter in case I have updates for you. And I do post a lot in the community tab on YouTube. So if you go to my page and check the community tab, if I got anything important to tell you, or if you're like, Greg hasn't put up a video in a few days. What the fuck's going on? Check over there. I've probably got an explanation for you. So anyway, that's what I've been dealing with. Thanks for listening to all of that. I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed in case I disappear for a week or so when I deal with life's misery. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what's going on. But we got business to take care of. We got wrestling to talk about. I still have a life to live. I got a job to do, you know, and things like that. So you just got to do that. You know, you just got to best foot forward type of thing. So that's the way I tackle life. And even though it's hard and it sucks, it's still got to be done, you know, and you can't hide from it. So that's the mentality that I take. So anywho, I'm sure you guys are nailing me with well wishes in the chat here. I appreciate that. I got some really, really nice messages and some emails. So thank you for all of that. I've read just about all of them. I just appreciate the support. You know, that really helps. That's what's cool about being a YouTuber and having, you know, hundreds of people watching you is, you know, they send you a lot of love, and it does help. So I appreciate that. Anywho, I wouldn't be able to do this, by the way, I should mention, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without my wonderful girlfriend, Elizabeth, who has been an absolute trooper and a badass through all of this. Her 40th birthday was on Saturday. We had big plans. We were going to do stuff. I was going to take her away. We had a party planned on Friday, you know, with her kids and going out to dinner and all this stuff to celebrate a milestone birthday. And all of this kind of had to be put on the back burner while we deal with him. And she's been unimaginably supportive, and I couldn't do it without her. She is awesome. Without her, I don't know how I'd be propped up. You know what I mean? So just to sacrifice your 40th birthday, and I felt so guilty about it. And, you know, she could care less. She's just, it's all about him. It's all about making sure this is right. So find yourself a supportive woman. You would be amazed how much that helps. So love you, Elizabeth. Anywho, let's get into news. Why don't we backtrack a bit and talk just quickly about Saturday? Now, Elimination Chamber for me started at 9 a.m. I'm on the West Coast in San Diego, so I got to get up early if I want to watch this shit. I think I missed the first 3 matches. Did not see Roman and Goldberg. Did not see, plus this was the day after I found out the news, so I did not give a fuck about this Blood Money show. So missed Roman and Goldberg, still haven't seen that match. Missed the Women's Elimination Chamber, still haven't seen that match. And I missed McIntyre and Madcap and that bump until last night. I was like, you know what? I'm going to tweet that I haven't seen the Madcap bump, and somebody will send me a clip, and one came in within seconds. So successful tweet. So I did see the Madcap bump. That was nasty. Really glad he's okay. But the show felt, based on the response from a lot of the fans, felt like it was a little bit on the flat side. They felt like more could have happened. And a lot of people were pissed about Brock coming away with the title. But the good news is that Roman did, in fact, defeat my dad, and he will not be winning the Universal title in February at a pay-per-view like he's already done twice against Kevin Owens and The Fiend. So Roman ended that streak, beat Goldberg. I hope we never see Goldberg again. But there's another bald guy with a goatee that might be working WrestleMania, and that still leaves a lot of possibilities open. Like I said, McIntyre beat Madcap Moss. Bianca Belair won the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Wasn't getting great reviews from all of you, but I don't really care about the match itself. I care about the winner, and Bianca winning is a big relief for me, because if they never paid off what happened to her at SummerSlam, as a fan, I would have been disappointed. You know, WWE does not do well with long-term storylines, and I don't believe, truly, I've been talking about it all year, ever since SummerSlam. I was at SummerSlam live, and I watched that debacle take place. So ever since then, I think the very next night on Raw, my Raw review, I was saying that I hope that they run this back and Bianca beats Becky for the title. I didn't think it would drag on to WrestleMania. And as we went through the year, it even seemed like they veered off track a bit with Bianca, like they weren't going to do that. I think it was December or something. We were saying here on the podcast, like, shit, I don't think they're going to go with Bianca and Becky anymore. But then when Ronda came back, that jumbled everything up. They chose, for whatever reason, to do Ronda and Charlotte, which I do think is the better match. But you would think Ronda would want Becky since she's the only person to really beat Ronda. But that match can come down the line. So instead, we get Bianca winning the Chamber, getting the title shot against Becky, and she is set now to win the title 2 years in a row at WrestleMania. I would guess, because last year it was the main event of night 1, this match will probably be the undercard of night 2. Although Becky dropping the title after 3 years is kind of a big deal. But I don't think there's a place for that to be in the main event this year. I think Ronda and Charlotte will probably get night 1. So at least in my head anyway. So I'm just happy for Bianca. She needs to, she needs to get, or Becky needs to get her comeuppance for sure. So very happy about that. Didn't see the tag match either. So I guess I only saw like the last 3 matches. Ronda and Naomi, they beat Sonya and Charlotte, right? I saw Ronda in her, her karate gi. Love that she was barefoot though. Well, I guess you can have your hands bare. So I guess, part of me wonders if that was a little FU to Saudi Arabia by leaving her feet bare. I don't know. So I kind of missed that as well. But I did catch everything else. So I saw the Becky and Leda match. It was okay, went exactly the way I thought. And for a minute there, I actually thought Leda had the match won. I think they were running out of time because the Usos and Viking Raiders was complete BS. They just brawled on the outside of the ring and it was like a no contest, ridiculous. And then we went into the Chamber match. Now, most people didn't like the Chamber because they felt it was lazily booked. Maybe, Brock coming in and destroying everybody is a very easy way to write things, but I didn't all hate it because I thought they did a few things that we haven't seen before. First of all, we've seen somebody ram through the pod. And we saw that, I forgot who got thrown through the pod, but whoever it was ran into Lashley and he got injured. Now, when he went down, I didn't think anything of this. I thought it just meant that Lashley was going to get in the match early because we've seen the pods kicked in a bunch of times. Goldberg did it for the first time like 20 years ago. So I didn't think that would really knock somebody completely out of the match. And it still didn't occur to me when he was on the floor selling and they were talking about concussion protocol. I was like, well, shit, maybe that's legit if they're getting him out of there. It didn't even dawn on me that he hasn't worked since Royal Rumble, has he? I don't think he's been in the ring on Raw. He's just been there doing promos and setup stuff for Elimination Chamber. So it should have occurred to me that, oh, shit, he might be hurt. They might be protecting him. So they knocked him out of the match. He has now lost the WWE title without even, competing in the match. And Michael Cole said, we're going to have a new champion now. So they basically keep going with the match, and then Lesnar just busts out of his pod early. I guess he was the last guy to come in, and so when the previous guy, whoever that was, that came into the match, Brock just decided that he's not going to wait for the countdown and the stupid light show. He's just going to bust through the pod and start kicking ass, and he did. And he just went in there, started F5ing everybody, eliminating everybody. And I called it. I said even prior to Elimination Chamber, you mark my words, Brock Lesnar will be the person to eliminate Seth Rollins because he's got 2 losses against Seth, and he's got to get a little bit of payback on him before he goes into WrestleMania. So he basically F5'd and pinned everybody, and the last guy left was, of all people, Austin Theory, who I think is fantastic. And he tried to climb up. I'd never seen this before. He climbed up to the top of the chamber and tried to escape through the holes of the chains. And Brock, watching that bear, this grizzly bear, climb up the cage was a terrifying sight. And Austin's trying to escape through the ceiling of the spaceship. It was hilarious. And Brock brings him down. And then they're on top of the pod. And then Austin Theory takes an F5 from the pod to the grating. The only good news there is they now put padding down on the grating. So Theory took a hell of a bump. I think after that, so the nut shot must have been after the F5, right? Because there's no way Brock would have been able to climb up to the cage after that. But Theory recovers enough, I think, to nut shot Brock, low blow him. He goes down. Theory tries to mount a little bit of an offensive, but it doesn't last long. Brock eventually destroys Theory, F5s him and pins him, and is your new WWE champion. Now, to me, this was okay. Now, this is before we knew about the Lashley injury. So, of course, naturally, people are going to be very upset about this. They don't want Brock as champion. They don't want title for title. They view this as some sort of a disservice to Bobby Lashley. And a lot of people were even saying this. They were saying, well, why the hell did why did Lashley even beat Brock for the title if they were just going to do Roman and Brock title for title? Why didn't Brock just beat Lashley at the Rumble and you do the same thing? Because if you did that, that would have made less sense and that would have damaged Lashley. Lashley would have benefited not at all from that scenario. But think about what they did. For once, WWE actually, in my mind, did the right thing. If they wanted to have Roman and Brock title for title, them taking this very strange road to get there is cool. I know day one messed everything up, but after that, in terms of what they did at the Rumble, think about what they did. Number one, they protected Bobby Lashley so he didn't have to get murdered, F5'd and pinned in the middle of the ring like Strowman and Samoa Joe and so many other guys that were contenders to Brock that just got put down and sacrificed. So WWE at least knew enough to not do that to Lashley. And someone like Brock is a guy who's so fucking over, he can easily survive a loss, especially a tainted loss or a shady loss to Lashley and lose nothing, lose no star power, no spot on the card. His stock will not decline 1%. Where if you beat Lashley, it would do a lot of damage to him because now a dream match that we're seeing for the first time to give Lashley that win, that's a big feather in his cap. But if Brock would have won that, it would have been a little feather in his cap because he's already got a shitload of feathers in there. So I think Lashley was the right way to go. And then in the Elimination Chamber, I guess after the Royal Rumble, they learned Lashley was injured. So they're like, okay, we'll put you in the chamber. We'll do a concussion deal. We'll knock you out. And what this does now, and granted, the Lashley injury has kind of screwed this up a bit, but with Lashley getting the win at the Royal Rumble, you set up a return down the line, which Brock probably will win. But it gives you an opportunity for a return, and it doesn't completely demolish Lashley like they've done with so many guys. I thought that my Great Balls of Fire prediction video, I picked Samoa Joe. I believed that WWE was ready to belt up another badass. I thought it was time. I thought it was way past time. And they didn't do it. And they didn't do it with Braun Strowman after he was owning Roman Reigns the way he did. So every time they've had this situation, they've completely had Brock annihilate whoever the dude was. So this time, I like this way. This is better than, so I know fans think this was all bad because, it's just lazy and Brock and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, they could have done it a lot worse. They could have had Brock just bury everybody and then, and then go into WrestleMania and then you got nobody left to, be contenders after that. So, Lashley remained strong through all of this, despite the, the injury. And when he comes back, there might be a good amount of fans really ready to see him. Maybe a break would be good for Lashley, especially if he comes back and confronts a Brock or a Roman when they're in the ring, because Lashley lost his belt in a bullshit way. You don't think that's going to be the very first thing he fucking brings up when he comes back? So as soon as he comes out there, he's going to be like, yo, remember February? One of you fuckers is putting your belt on the line against me right now. So I think that could potentially open up awesome stuff down the line. So I really have no issue with the way they did it. I know fans just hate to see Brock coming in there and just demolishing people. I don't care. Brock is my favorite fucking guy now. You talk about cowboy shit. I mean, I love AEW. I love Hangman Page, but that's the real cowboy shit. Sweater wearing Brock, cowboy hat wearing Brock, hanging out, high-fiving little kids, letting them touch the belt. He's fantastic. He's entertaining. He's charismatic. He legitimately looks like he's having a good time, where Brock, throughout his entire career, has appeared to be a very miserable person. Part of the reason why he left in 2004, because he fucking hated it. So he seems to be in a great place. His interview on Pat McAfee's show was great. He had a great time body slamming Wee Man and during WrestleMania weekend. He seems like he's really having a good time. Now, if we can just get this guy to suit up and wrestle on Raw for the first time in 2 decades, that would maybe give us a better feeling of Brock being back full time, because he really has been on the show a lot lately. And now that he's champion, he's got 2 shows to basically build his match with Roman on Raw and SmackDown, because they can't just build the whole thing on SmackDown. You got to have a little bit over on Raw as well. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Brock, and he's probably going to be paid well for it. And I fucking love the guy. So I guess I'm probably in the minority. I'm not saying everything's perfect, with the way WWE booked that chamber match. Everything WWE does is idiotic for the most part. But in terms of Brock, how over he is right now, them doing the title versus title thing at Mania, it's not ideal, but it doesn't piss me off. There's 2 championships. I don't even think we really need 2 anyway. And I don't like the fact that they're setting up winner take all only to undo that. Because how long, I know we've had people with 2 belts before. Becky did it just a couple years ago, and Brock's done it himself when he won the 2 things at SummerSlam, beating John Cena. But having somebody actually hold 2 championships that can be separately defended, because I think when Cena and Orton had unified those belts, so really they were one and the same, even though Brock had 2. So if you have one guy holding both belts, he's going to have to give one of them up. And I would hate that. Like, what if Roman wins at WrestleMania and he comes out on Raw? I got nothing left to accomplish. I've held this belt I've been champion for 500 plus days, and now I got another one. I've smashed everybody. There's nobody left to smash. I'm smashless. So here you go. I don't even need this one. I don't like blue anyway. Here, take it, put it up in a tournament. I would hate it if they did that. So you would think whoever walks away with these titles will drop one of them to somebody pretty quickly. That somebody, I think WWE was planning on being Lashley perhaps, but he's out now. So I don't know what they're going to do, but if you're going to have a guy holding both championships, then I don't know what the point of the brand split is anymore. It doesn't feel like this is going to be a unification. I think we'd all like to see that, but it doesn't appear they're going that direction. So it's just going to be title for title. So yeah, it's not ideal, but I don't really hate it either, because Roman's been pretty goddamn dominant and he's had an incredible run. And this run, as long as it's been, hasn't been boring at all to me. I guess I can't speak for everybody. To me, it hasn't been boring at all. And I think there's a lot of fans, usually with long title runs, that get bored. They get annoyed, which I always laugh because I lived through a lot of multiple year title runs. I lived through Backlund and Hogan's runs back to back. You talk about getting bored with one fucking guy. Holy shit. Try living in the early 80s. But now, you got a guy holding the belt for 9 months. Fans get bored pretty quick. Roman's had this thing forever, and I'm still just as much invested in him as I've ever been. And it's one of the only things WWE's done right. They really have made this match pretty intriguing. I don't give a fuck that we've seen it 9 times. I don't care. When you can have guys wrestle that many times and it's still interesting to see them, because this is a different Roman and a different Brock than who they were before. I wish they didn't do this match already. They did it, the last Crown Jewel event, right, in Saudi Arabia? I really wish they didn't do that. And they were about to have him face again at day 1. So maybe the plan was to have something shady go down at day 1. So you had shady shit at a Crown Jewel, shady shit at day 1, and then all the marbles, rubber match, blow off WrestleMania. That was probably their initial intent. So, that's kind of what you do. I mean, every WrestleMania main event, at least for the first few, the matches had happened before. Bundy and Hogan, I think, happened on Saturday night's main event. Andre and Hogan happened a bunch when Hogan was a heel. Hogan and Savage happened a bunch before Savage turned babyface. A lot of those WrestleMania main events were matches that we've seen plenty of times, but it's how you build it. It's where the characters and the stories are at the time. And Brock has never been more entertaining and more over, and neither has Roman. That's your collision course. That's why I think fans are just kind of a little bit too programmed into thinking, I don't want to see that because I've already seen it, without realizing kind of like the character and story development that's been going on here. So I think that Roman and Brock at WrestleMania is a very fitting main event, and I got no issue with it at all. But maybe the title versus title thing was not necessary. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes down the line. So that kind of wraps up Elimination Chamber. We'll run into Monday Night Raw now and some wrestling news. Checking over here in the chat. Nice. Hit that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. Before we get into Raw, 3 little tidbits of news to get into. Number 1, there were some reports coming out this week that WWE internally was eyeballing a 4 horsewomen fatal 4-way main event for WrestleMania this year. I think that's a great idea. I don't think this year would have been the year for it. Saw a lot of people angry. They would never do that. There's no room for that. I'm like, that's probably why they're not doing it. I saw so many people point out why the match wouldn't work. Well, don't you think that's why we're not getting it? Don't you think that crossed WWE's mind? Oh, Bayley might not even be healthy. Sasha's kind of been in the background lately. Becky and Charlotte have their animosity and their heat. It would be really hard to kind of get everybody together and develop a compelling storyline in time for WrestleMania, especially when one of your parts may or may not even be healthy. So I think WWE just decided to not do that this year. There's no reason to be pissed about it. When you think about it, that's a very fitting main event and one that they should absolutely do one day. the four horsewomen main eventing a WrestleMania. Maybe if you ever, and they probably won't, but if you ever decided to unify your women's titles, that would be the match to do. You would think it would be very reminiscent of Angle, Austin, Jericho, and Rock at Vengeance, when Jericho won the titles or something. So if they ever decided to do that, I would be firmly behind it, because those women are really going to be the foundation of whatever kind of women's division we see in the future. It's very, very possible that WWE will fuck up and ruin all of the progress they've made. But whatever they do and whatever women are on top, they're going to really have a lot of respect, I think, for the pillars, the foundation, the four horsewomen, and those four that really kind of helped develop the new women's era in WWE. So it's a main event. It's a match worthy, I should say, of a WrestleMania main event. So interesting tidbit there. Also, PW Insider is reporting that Drake Maverick has been rehired by WWE and has been working there for a few weeks on the creative team. So no plans for him to wrestle, but he is now back with the company. Apparently, again, I'm sure we'll get some extra confirmation on this if it turns out to be true, but it seems like a weird thing to make up or lie about. So I don't have any reason to doubt it. Excuse me. But I'm happy for him, because he really seems like a guy who wants to be there. I mean, we saw that first promo of his, or that video he posted after he was let go the first time. Sorry, my voice is kind of going this week. And he was just destroyed, crying, WWE shirt, and then they rehired him. He cried his way back into a job, and I love Maverick. He's got a great attitude, hard worker, should have never been released to begin with. But WWE doing that to him, was kind of shitty. And so they hired him back. But then in the next batch of releases, he was finally cut again. And he released that great video of him kind of talking to himself, picking himself up, splicing in his, his crying video with the current one. And I'm like, whoever this guy is, it's going to be fun to see him turn up in Impact or AEW, because this is awesome, But apparently he's back in WWE. And if that's where he wants to be, I'm happy for him. And hopefully he can contribute. And hopefully those assholes don't let him go for a third time, because that would be pretty shitty. And of course, like we talked about earlier, the other big news of the week was that, excuse me, I should turn my cough button on when I do that. The other big news of the week is that the Undertaker has been officially announced for the 2022 Hall of Fame class. Obviously, he will be headlining this thing. And there's been some talk that he might even be a sole inductee. I kind of hope that he's not, but there is something weird going on with the Hall of Fame this year. They're doing that 2-for-1 bullshit, and it's like it's a joint show with SmackDown. It's going to be like SmackDown and Hall of Fame show together, and I don't know if they're going to have to redo the set. It makes me think that they're going to do this whole damn thing on the stage again, like they did in the Thunderdome show last year, and the Hall of Fame is basically going to take place in a normal wrestling arena, and everything's just going to go on the stage. I hate that. I just really miss the old days of the way the Hall of Fame was the night before WrestleMania. We got so many years of that. It really felt special. It was a fun night for me. I would take off work, and I would make sure I just was home, with some beer and some popcorn and enjoying watching people get inducted that I grew up watching. It was such a blast for me, and it's been deteriorating year after year to the point where in 2019, they had that shitty new podium set up where Bret Hart was attacked by that dick face. And then, of course, we had COVID after that, didn't get a Hall of Fame. And then last year we got one in the Thunderdome, which was taped and terrible. Speeches slashed, only a few minutes now to talk, kind of timed for TV. And I know the old Hall of Fames could drag on. A lot of the talent would get really tired sitting there when they got a big match the next day. I get it, but it makes for great DVD content. And I think when you have speeches that go long, they can be the most fun. Some of the best Hall of Fame speeches in history have gone on for like 30 minutes. So they don't want to do that anymore for streamlining things. I get it, but that really breaks the heart of a fan like me. So I'm a little bit terrified of what the Hall of Fame is even going to look like this year. I feel like WWE does the Hall of Fame now because they have to, but now you got 2 nights of WrestleMania and a TakeOver to worry about. They're running TakeOver at like 11 in the morning or some shit on Saturday. So I'm worried that they're going to phone in the Hall of Fame. The Undertaker's Hall of Fame induction is something that we've all been thinking about for 20 years. Oh, it's going to be so cool when he goes in. what's that going to be like? But to see what the Hall of Fame has become, they've kind of, WWE ruins everything. They've even taken this away from us. So I might be overreacting. We haven't seen the Hall of Fame yet. It hasn't even happened. So maybe they can put together a show that somehow works and the fans enjoy and gives us entertaining, meaningful speeches that aren't cut too short. And we can really, celebrate some of these men and women if we are going to have a full class this year. But, it just worries me that they're combining it with a SmackDown where they're going to do one or the other first. I would hope they would do SmackDown first so they're not constrained by any time, or constrained by any time, because if you do it before SmackDown, you got to wrap it up by the time SmackDown goes on the air. So that would suck. So I just worry that it's going to be a letdown is all. But congratulations to The Undertaker, obviously, first balloter. We talked about who will induct him at the very beginning of the show here. You can rewind a bit and re-listen to that. But in a nutshell, I basically said there's only one guy, and that's Vince McMahon. You can make a case for a lot of guys like Triple H, like Shawn, like Mick Foley, like Kane, and potentially other opponents like Batista, Edge, AJ, guys that Taker has worked with and had memorable matches with. All of them you could make a case for. But to me, there's only one right answer, and that's Vince McMahon. And I kind of wish that Vince didn't induct Austin. He did so because of primarily their feud. But in terms of, Austin's run was short. Austin's run in the company was from 96 to 2002, or 2003 or whatever it was. He wasn't there long. Undertaker quadrupled the run of Austin by being there 30 some odd years, or 30 years anyway. So his longevity and loyalty and how important he was to the WWE in their darkest days, and the relationship he probably does have with Vince after 30 years of him being your boss and paying you a goddamn lot of money, I think Vince owes a lot to The Undertaker, and I think he's the guy to induct him. I think, Vince should have inducted all of his icons. I can't believe they had Stallone do Hogan. Vince should have done Hogan. He should have. And if he did Austin, I think Vince should do Taker too. But if for any reason the crazy mumbling lunatic now known as Vince McMahon does not decide to induct The Undertaker, then I think it's Kane. And then if it's not Kane, it can be any of those other names you want. Take your pick. But I think it's Vince 1 and Kane 2. That's my opinion. Let me know if you concur. Before we get into Raw, I still have to do the results of that show, right? Let me cruise up here to the chat and make sure everything's all right. I know there's a super chat from JJ Leg. Thanks for that $2. Ooh, I like that. 4 horsewomen main event at WrestleMania 40. Makes sense. That is the Mania moment. They can make the whole thing 4 themed. You know what I mean? They can just put 4s everywhere or some shit. I don't know. They can somehow make something out of that. The 4 horsewomen main event WrestleMania 40. Maybe if there was a way, they'll probably exceed this, but between the 4 women, what if all of them collectively held 40 championships? Maybe Charlotte holds 16, Bayley holds 8. And so, yeah, I think they're going to exceed 40, to be honest. But what if by the time we got to WrestleMania 40, and somebody can do the research on that, look it up. How close are we? How many more championships need to be won before the 4 of them reach 40? I bet you it's not that many. And I bet you they could get there by the time we got to WrestleMania 40. What the hell are we on now? 38? So we're 2 years away from that. Yeah, it's possible. I like it. I like it a lot. Zane G, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate all the kind words from you as well on Twitter. And that goes for many of you on here. Rarely even you two. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Cody stuff and Edge. Rarely even. A lot of people are probably talking about Edge and Cody. I like that WWE is teasing the shit out of Cody. And I think we need to talk about Cody first because he's in my thumbnail. I forgot to change it before I went live. I'll change it when I go off here since Cody did not appear on the show. And as a matter of fact, I had him in the backdrop right there. I had him poised and ready in case he was able to make the show tonight. So unfortunately, no Cody tonight, but he's definitely coming in. And we didn't see him tonight, but in terms of Cody Rhodes and him coming into the company, I think I want to address one thing. I think it's a pretty small minority who, really believe this, but I think something needs to be brought up. And that is if there is a possibility that this entire Cody Rhodes situation is a work. I'm here to tell you it's not. I'm pretty confident that it's not. I'm willing to say 100% that it's not a work for a bunch of different reasons. Primarily, the main one is WWE playing along. Do you think for a second that these assholes would do anything to help the progress of an angle in AEW, especially if it's one that's, teasing, jumping to the other side? I mean, if Cody wasn't coming in, none of these teases would be taking place. They've been dropping hints all day. Now I forgot. But they've dropped several lyrics to his song, one from the Dashing Days and one from his current theme. They dropped a couple of hints on Raw tonight, and they're basically making it known that, yeah, the cat's out of the bag. He's coming back. If this was some sort of an internal angle in AEW that they were trying to do to work everybody, that means, number one, Tony Khan's got to work his own boys. You don't do that. You don't. And I think a lot of wrestlers would be insulted if he worked the whole fucking locker room. It's a bad idea, and it ain't worth it. So he's not going to do that. And number two, I don't think any wrestling company really wants to get in a habit of issuing worked statements on departing talent. Wishing Cody and Brandy well, they're officially leaving AEW. I don't think it's a good idea to make up fake releases either. Like if WWE Future endeavors somebody, we've speculated that on a lot of guys, even like Bray Wyatt recently. Oh, do you think the release is a work? Maybe, but it better not be. I don't think that's a really good idea to make that a habit, because that's kind of insulting to talent that actually is released. And now whenever you do release somebody, you're going to make fans question it because you've already done it before. So we're never going to take a release 100% seriously ever again. And we're going to have the possibility of it being a work in the back of our minds. Not that that can't be fun to always wonder, but you're playing with real life stuff here. And I think that's one line treading into reality that you don't want to go into. Reality is great when you can sew it into storylines, but something like that, it's going to ruin your credibility whenever you do announce something, especially if it's something really serious, because I know this sounds crazy, but what if somebody dies, in WWE? What if somebody dies suddenly? We haven't had a member of the main roster die in a while, have we? When was the last time somebody who was actively wrestling passed away? Was it Eddie? It's got to be maybe somebody else, but or Benoit. But aside, imagine that happens. They say, WWE is saddened to learn of the passing of Randy Orton. Then you're going to have fans wondering if it's a work and he's going to show up on Raw and shit. I think it's a slippery slope, to be honest. So AEW should not, be fronting like that and pretending, they're leaving the company. Nobody should be faking a release. And again, if this was some internal storyline in AEW and Cody was going to come back to try to make a shocking return to AEW, attack somebody, possibly win a championship, that means WWE, for no reason, just agreed to go along with this and continue the tease. Because if this was a work, don't you think that WWE would do whatever they could to sabotage it? It's totally what they do. They work so hard behind the scenes to stunt the growth of AEW in ways that we don't even know. Some of the shady shit they're doing with the Fast Nationals and, some of the contacts they've had and offers they've made to journalists and whatnot to really kind of push, certain narratives and stuff like that. It's gross, so don't think for a second they'd be happily playing along with this bullshit. They would do whatever they could to sabotage it. They would come right out and say, we have not had any conversations with Cody Rhodes. This whole thing is bullshit. They're fooling you. Or they would make some sort of a statement that somewhere on social media, maybe a talent does it, but they would basically call bullshit and say, no, he's not coming back here. We don't even know his fucking phone number, and just kill the whole thing dead. They would, so that's what they would do if this was a work. And I never really thought it was a work ever. There's no evidence to me that there's one. I've had fans say there's a lot of evidence that this is a work. Where? Seems like a pretty normal standard way to handle things. If somebody leaves, especially if you leave on, somewhat respectable terms, you show love on your way out the door. You make an official statement from your company. The talent then confirms it. Everybody then talks about it. Wrestlers are going on podcasts. Kenny Omega had a lot to say about this recently, and everybody talks about it. You can tell if it was a work. You'd be able to tell. This is not a work. It's not a work, not a work, not a work. I don't think many people think it is, but, I can understand because of the shocking nature of his departure. He's an EVP. He's one of the founding fathers of this company, somebody that we thought was going to be anti-WWE for life, going back there after 5 years, is crazy. And I can understand why people would maybe be skeptical. But if you just think about it, you'll understand that it's not a work. Just, if you're a wrestling fan, if you're a real fan that thinks they know shit, just think. You'll agree with me. So it ain't a work. So that's where we are with Cody. It's just a matter of when he's going to come in now. I was really hoping to see him tonight because I thought that would be fun. But a lot of people are speculating as to when we will see Cody. So tell me in the chat, where do we see Cody? When is the best time to see Cody? This is assuming he's coming in, and we're going to do this podcast under the assumption that he's coming in. If he shows back up in AEW, then who the fuck knows? We'll talk about that and do a whole video on that another day. But let's talk as if he's coming in, and just assume he is, because that's easier. Where do you bring him in? The most common answer I've seen so far, which is kind of getting comical by this point, is the night after WrestleMania. And the biggest reason we've seen for that online is because the night after WrestleMania always has a big surprise. The night after WrestleMania has sucked in recent years and has completely lost the magic that it used to have. But it used to be great. And if they could recapture some of that by having Cody turn up, that would be awesome. And I think that would be awesome, especially if he did something huge. I saw somebody pitch to me on Twitter the idea of him coming out to a 2-belt holding Roman Reigns and upsetting him for one of those titles. You talk about a statement win. And Vince saying, here's how big of a deal we're going to make Cody Rhodes. Like, what if in the contract negotiations, I personally am not endorsing this, so don't lose your nuts. If in the contract negotiations or whatever, Vince says, you'll be the guy to beat Roman. Somebody's got to beat him. Somebody has to beat him. Cody beating him would be a career-launching win for him. He would be immortalized in greatness in WWE. That would be crazy. I don't know how they would do that. They could do it in a way if, let's say, Roman Reigns wins the titles, but he's gravely injured. Brock fucks him up badly. Well, then you still got to do the match. Cody would have to come out to challenge, and Roman would have to accept it. But if he's like busted and limping, he's probably not going to accept. So it'd be tough to get that way. But maybe Roman was weakened or something. You could even do it that way. But even if he's not weakened, you're still weakened if you have a match with Brock Lesnar the night before. No matter if you win or lose or you don't get injured or you do, you're not 100% anyway. So that could be all Cody needs to take advantage of, number one, the shock factor. Roman is going to view this as somebody from the other company jumping over here. He catches him off guard. He's not expecting to see that. Cody's father was a big help, I'm sure, to Roman Reigns. Dusty and Roman were there together, right, in NXT. It might be enough to shake Roman to where he's not focused. Boom, crossroads, new champ. What a way to debut. I think that would be the only way I'd actually be okay with Cody debuting the night after WrestleMania. Otherwise, to me at this point, it's predictable because that's what everybody wants now. And I'm okay with predictable sometimes, but if you want a surprise, because with Brock coming in, like, we kind of knew he was probably coming back, but we weren't sure. But when his music hit in 2012 and he returned and attacked Cena, that was magic. So you'd have to do something major like that. And I think maybe if he came out to Roman, like maybe even like how I talked about earlier, how Roman could come out and be like, I smashed everybody. There's nobody left to smash. Like I said, that Roman might forfeit one of those belts up for a tournament. That's a perfect place to bring in Cody. Hey, if there was anybody out there that I thought could beat me, I'd be happy to put the title up. If somebody from another company wanted to come in, it'd be the only person I'd face because everybody else I've smashed already. Again, that would set up perfectly for Cody. So that's like not a terrible idea if the goal here is to make Cody a megastar in the company, if that's what they plan to do. He could just come in and feud with fucking Damien Priest and win the IC or win the US. If he does win the IC, I hope to God he resurrects the good old design. I don't like the white strap, but I'll take the white strap classic IC over that monstrosity they have now. So if Cody re-won that might be fun. But to me, if I'm Cody, I'm not jumping ship and, losing my place in AEW to go contend for the IC title in the WWE. I feel like we've heard the reports of WWE going to make him a big deal. and probably really push the Rhodes name and Rhodes legacy and make that a part of it. Maybe in some ways use the Dusty name to replace Ric Flair. They don't really want to focus and draw too much attention to Flair now because of the reputation that he's made for himself, and Dusty isn't all perfect, but he might be a better, old-time NWA figure that they're going to immortalize than Flair, because he's got family there too now. And now you got Charlotte and Cody both there. That could be interesting down the road if they ever did something with those two in terms of an alliance or a crossover or anything. So there's lots of, there's lots of opportunities and possibilities for Cody, but that idea of him, beating Roman is intriguing. So if they brought him back any other way other than that, I almost feel like it would be a letdown because number one, we'd be expecting him. And number two, if he's not confronting a world champion, then who cares really? So I think it would be best to capitalize when you have an opportunity to actually surprise us because WWE, they can tease the shit out of us now. We got a long time until WrestleMania. So they get to now mess with us every week, teasing him here, teasing him there, social media, on commentary, whatever. And then we don't know when he's coming. We thought he could have came out like 3 different times tonight because they brought out Jake Paul, which we'll talk about. And of course, there's some Edge's challenge, and I think there was one other place where I'm like, oh, he could come out here technically if he wanted to. So I think they can do this to us now a lot. So if they debuted him between now and WrestleMania, that would be a legitimate surprise because I don't think we'd be expecting it. It could happen at any time. Could happen tonight, could happen next week, could happen on SmackDown, could happen on the MSG show, could happen at WrestleMania, or it could happen the night after WrestleMania. At WrestleMania would be fun too. How would you do that? You know who I think doesn't really have anything to do right now on the roster, which we'll talk about, is Seth Rollins. If Owens is going to face Austin and RK Bro is going to implode, what the hell does Seth Rollins do? And Edge is going to work with AJ. What does Rollins do? Maybe he does the deal where he's mad. They did this with Kurt Angle a couple of times where he came out on Raw. He's like, I don't have a WrestleMania match. What the fuck? I need somebody to face. And then he wound up facing Kane and Benoit in those back-to-back years. So they could just do the same thing with Seth. They could even save it until WrestleMania. Seth could just come out, dressed like a buffoon, and gets on the mic and says, can you believe this idiotic company has left whatever he calls himself now off WrestleMania, former multi-time champion. I'm the best star in this company. I'm the greatest wrestler in the world. Maybe, drop a couple of hints. Because who presented Seth Rollins with the NXT title? Forgot his name. Dusty something. So that could be awesome too. If you try to tie that in somehow and Seth is out there being a freak and then Cody's music hits, imagine that 100,000 popping at WrestleMania. And I apologize for just kind of thinking out loud here. I know we still got to get into the Raw review, but I like speculating. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on. So if Cody comes out at WrestleMania, crowd goes ape shit, because that will be kind of shocking, even though you'll probably see it come. And Seth's going to be out there on the mic, and the fans are going to be going, Cody, Cody. And then he comes out. That could be huge. And maybe he gets on the mic and says, this isn't the guy that my dad always talked about. This is the guy that I worked against. Me and my brother beat you and what's his face for the title. No, that was Roman and Dean, I think. But that Rhodes match where they won the titles was awesome. And so when I was here, you were a different guy. You were driven. You were, you had respect and shit like that. And now you're a fucking ass clown. Like, what gives? Like you're desecrating my dad's name. He saw a lot in you and he presented you your very first championship in this company, and you've just basically pissed on his grave. So if you think you're so bad and you're so wonderful, I say differently. And remember, my dad taught you, but he also taught me, and he's my dad and I lived with him. So I learned way more from him than you did. And ring the bell. Let me show you. And then Cody beats Seth. It wouldn't be terrible. So there's things you could do, but I do wonder at this point what Seth Rollins is going to do. Let's get into Raw. Before I do, Deshaun, thank you for that $5, my man. Friday, SmackDown and Hall of Fame. Saturday, NXT TakeOver Mania Night 1, Mania Night 2. Define the term no sleep. Man, I don't even know if I can handle a WrestleMania weekend. I'm supposed to go to this event next year when it's in LA, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep up with all of this. I'm going to be tired. I'm an old man. So, yeah, that's going to be nuts. Deshaun, thank you very much, dude, for the fiver and the 5 spot. I don't think I'm missing any others. Oh, no, I got one from you. Chris, good to see you, man. Thanks for the $5. Solomonster made a good point that if WWE books Cody well, it would show AEW some guys that it could be a two-way street in terms of who to sign with. Yeah, exactly. And there is going to be a big bidding war in the future once guys' contracts come up, because remember, AEW's new. They haven't had enough time for contracts to expire yet, but the more years go on, the more contracts are going to be up for expiration every year. So there's going to be, people have decisions to make. And right now, WWE does not have the best reputation in the wrestling business in terms of what they do to your career. They just completely fuck with you there. And it's a dangerous place to be unless you got some pull, unless you got some stroke. And now that there is competition, you might have a little bit more advantage in terms of what you can and can't get into contracts, because before, when WWE had the monopoly, people were literally signing their life away. And now you can have guys come in. If I wish I had the drawing power of somebody like a Roman. And when my contract came up, I looked Vince right in his face. I'm like, Vince, I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to twitch my balls off. I'm going to open up 6 Pro Wrestling Tees stores. I'm going to have $1,000 cameos where I'm going to get every single red fucking cent of that. And if you don't meet those terms, I'll see you on Wednesday, or you'll see me on TV on Wednesday. Take it or leave it, old man. I swear to Jesus, I would say that. So there might be a chance now for guys to be able to get a little bit more of that freedom in terms of, WWE just really, really owning you to death. And I believe that if Cody comes in, he will work out the song. And it will be truly, I think, the first time in history that a theme song has remained completely intact. I mean, aside from Cult of Personality and, real songs that are used. That's crazy, man. So it's exciting. We'll see. Cody's coming in for sure. What does he do? Patience, our friends. Let's finally get through these Raw results. We won't spend too much time on this. Brock Lesnar opened up the show, coming out looking awesome, wearing this sweet cowboyish sweater. Looked very warm, very cozy. He's got a cowboy hat on. He stops and talks to the fans. He lets this kid pat the belt. He is just a joy to watch. Big shit-eating grin on his face, having a ball. And I love to see this out of Brock. This is my favorite Brock Lesnar ever. And he was already one of my favorites. I put on Twitter tonight that 5 years ago, I did a top 10 favorite wrestlers video, and I had him listed at number 8. And I'm moving him all the way up to number 3. You can't get higher than 3 on my list, because if your name's not Randy or Brett, you're kind of bumped automatically to 3. So technically, Brock is my favorite. And he's my favorite ever. He is fantastic and real cowboy shit, that's for sure. So he's celebrating, says, I won the title, blah, blah, blah. And Paul Heyman comes out to the stage. Now, you would think in upcoming weeks we are going to see Summer Roman on Raw, just because I can't see this entire thing being booked on one show. And Heyman mentions that Brock might not even make it until WrestleMania, because he has to face Bobby Lashley at Madison Square Garden in a couple of weeks. That I think is going to be some Saturday show. Not sure the details on it. You guys can fill me in. Not sure if it's Net or Peacock or if it's just a house show. I don't know. So this match is supposed to happen, but it's been reported that Lashley, of course, is hurt. He's going to be out for a few months. So that match probably isn't going to happen. And they mentioned several times tonight that he is going to have to pass concussion protocol if he is to get in. So they're probably going to boot him out, and Brock is going to face someone else, one way or the other. He's going to Mania to face Roman title for title. We know that. And Brock says, dude, I know what I have to be. I know what I got to do. And he calls him a dick. He said, you're such a dick. I don't know what the exact line that he used, but I cracked up. I'm like, dick is a lot more fun than shit. So he calls Heyman a dick. That got a huge chuckle out of me. And he says that he will be on SmackDown this week to probably confront Roman Reigns. So that segment ends, and really not a whole lot to that, because now it's got to, we got to start building Roman and Brock. So that's going to take some time, and you got to go slow. You didn't want to have Roman come out tonight and the two start brawling, because you got a long way to go until you get to WrestleMania. So you're going to have some, slow going, seemingly meaningless promos during this build. And this might have been one of them, but it was all worth it because Brock looked like $1 million. Hilarious. We cut backstage to Owens and Seth Rollins, who are being interviewed, and they are vowing to win the tag team titles. Now, they got a match later on in the main event against RK Bro. If they win, they will be inserted to an already existing title match in a couple of weeks on Raw. So that's what they're going after, and they think they would make great tag team champions. I agree. They're hilarious together. Seth winds up walking off, and then before Owens leaves, he makes it a point to shit on Texas. I'm glad he did that. So looks like Owens and Austin is probably still on. I don't want to, spoiler in the main event, you guys already know that Owens and Rollins won that match. So my question is, where is that match taking place? They specifically have it 2 weeks from now. Is that in Texas or something? Or do you think there's a chance that that might be the night that the big hint is dropped with Austin and Owens? Maybe even Austin comes out and stuns them. Can you imagine Owens and Rollins selling stunners? Oh my God. Think of how out of control they would go to make sure that Austin looked like Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's going to be some fun shit. And there's also the possibility, I talked about Seth earlier on and laid out that whole possibility of the Cody match. But what if, Austin is more comfortable working a tag? That is possible. You pair him up with some babyface and they could take on Owens and Rollins, and that might be a better match to do. And if that's the case, that will give Seth Rollins something to do, and it'll, put him in the books as well as having an actual match against Stone Cold Steve Austin, which has got to be a fucking thrill. It's got to be right up there with Edge winning the tag team titles with Hogan. So anybody of the current generation getting inside of the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin has got to be crapping their pants. Like, seriously, if just putting myself in their position, I'd be, because I'm the same age as a lot of them, maybe a little older. But yeah, I'd be shitting myself too. So that means they were probably younger than me, which they were even more impressionable. I was watching Austin in my mid-20s. If I was watching Austin when I was 12, I would probably become obsessed and become a Austin cult follower. So I'd be the fangirl from hell, most likely, if I saw him at a different time period in my life. So a lot of those wrestlers feel that way about Austin, and getting in the ring with him is probably pretty awesome. So they're going to be winning later on. We'll talk about that in a minute. We did have a tag team title match tonight. Alpha Academy defended against the Street Profits. Good match. Big feat of strength at the end in the finish when Montez picks up Otis, but he falls backwards and for the pin, and Montez's feet are kind of near the apron, and Gable holds onto it for extra leverage. And the Alpha Academy retains the titles. Good. No need to swap the titles back to the Profits right now. Didn't even really need to see this match. So we'll be getting another title match in a couple of weeks. Then we've got an interview with Tommaso Ciampa, and Finn Balor shows up, kind of insinuating that the two of them should team and become a tag team. Why not? What else are you doing with these guys? Ciampa has now basically moved up to the main roster, probably permanently. He's got a match tomorrow against Dolph, #1 contender. Winner gets a shot at Breaker. I think it's going to be Dolph all the way. And Ciampa will probably stay on Raw, so him and Balor are going to suit up and form a tag team. So that could maybe be interesting if done right. They both have badass theme songs. I like them both. You could probably create some sort of what do the kids say? Slaps. The theme could slap if they combine them. So I think the two of them could have a great mashup. Somebody text or tweet just Alex and get them on that shit. So maybe if done right, you've now added yourself a really great team to the tag team division. But in a lot of ways too, it's a team that doesn't really need to be made, because it's kind of being made because WWE just isn't fucking doing anything with Balor. The Demon's not back. He's never recaptured what happened after he, before he got injured. So it's sad. So they've kind of put them together. Who knows? Maybe they'll dominate, but WWE, even when they start something good going, there's very, very low entropy. It just disseminates so quickly when they put it together, whether it's Alpha Academy or RK Bro, you watch, it's just going to disintegrate into nothing eventually. And these two guys will probably be no different. They'll probably wind up feuding or something when it's all over. Who knows? But in the meantime, they can probably make an awesome team. So they would have a tag team match after the break against the Dirty Dogs, and pretty good match. Ciampa would pin Bobby Roode. Corey calls it a big upset, says, wow, what a major upset against a decorated tag team, or one of the most decorated tag teams in WWE. I'm like, it's really easy to be decorated when you have 45 fucking titles in the company, but I think Ciampa and Balor have stronger resumes, so I don't know why it was that big of an upset. But in terms of their WWE runs, because Roode has done dick since he's been there. So tomorrow on NXT, we apparently get Dolph Ziggler against Tommaso Ciampa. The winner is going to get a shot at the Breaker Man. So I kind of want Ziggler to win. And now Ziggler, I don't think is going to beat Braun Breaker. I think Breaker will probably just annihilate him, as should be the case. But if you look at this tag team match tonight, 3 of those guys were NXT champion. Bobby Roode was, right? He was, correct? So the only guy in that match who wasn't NXT champion was Ziggy, and he's got a shot at it, possibly, if he wins tomorrow. But I don't think and I think he will. I think he'll beat Champa. Now we get Miz TV. You know what's going to happen. It's top of the hour. Well, here comes Jake Paul. Logan Paul, right? I didn't even pay attention to this. I was not listening. I knew it was going to happen. Miz is flapping his gums. Mysterio's come out. They flap their gums. Ray flaps his mask. Then Miz must have talked about WrestleMania, because after this, they said the WrestleMania match is set, and says, I've got a match, or I've got a partner for you guys to face you guys. And he brings out Logan Paul. And the two of them beat the shit out of the Mysterios, Logan Paul even delivering a skull-crushing finale to somebody, I think Dominic. And the match is now set. So another weird attraction match again for The Miz this year. He'll be facing the Mysterios with Jake Paul. Just a weird match for Rey Mysterio to have. Rey Mysterio, his name, I know this is going to get some publicity for Rey and his son. That's probably good. A lot of outlets are going to pick up on this Jake Paul shit, and Dominic will get exposure. So Rey's probably being a good dad here. But the fan in me is like, you got Mysterio. He's just as big of an iconic name in my mind, and just as influential as an AJ or a Shawn or anybody like that. And kind of shitty to see him used this way, kind of, but you could easily put a babyface AJ in the same position, with a young guy, and it would be the same deal. So, maybe, in terms of what Rey's trying to accomplish for Dominic, him being in a big time Mania match against at least at the time, a big celebrity, it's good for him, I suppose. I kind of wish Jake Paul could take the place of Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That I would be totally into. How fun would that be? Pass the lotion. Anyway, after that, we had Rhea Ripley versus Nikki ASH. Not much to say. Rhea beats the crap out of her. Riptide for the win. If that is not the last time they face, I'm going to move into the forest and build a treehouse. After that, Taker Hall of Fame video package. Great shit. One of the best they've ever done. Sad But True is actually my favorite Metallica song. But I hate Kid Rock. So it was horrible to watch a video package that is so badass that has traces of that redneck idiot in it, but it was great. So well done. And I think my favorite thing about the entire video package is that the only footage of Hulk Hogan is him being dragged behind the Undertaker's motorcycle and rammed into the steel poles. That shit tickles me every time I see it. And you got to remember, The Undertaker beat Hulk Hogan for the WWE title 2 times, and they showed none of that footage, but they showed Taker dragging Hogan and ramming him into the wall. Pop. Huge pop. One of the best video packages, Kid Rock or not, that they've ever done. Taker going to the Hall of Fame is pretty awesome. Damien Priest versus Shelton Benjamin is up next. Why is Shelton and Cedric even called the Hurt Business still? They joined, the Hurt Business already existed, and then they joined it. But then when it disbanded, they kept the name. So Lashley and MVP are not Hurt Business anymore. WWE doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They dropped the ball so badly on this entire thing. And then when they went to pick up the ball, remember when they kind of reunited them briefly, they accidentally kicked the ball into the street, into moving traffic. Morons. Complete morons. How you cannot make a badass looking group like that work or have any sort of longevity or follow through with anything with them blows my mind. It's amazing that Lashley survived all of that horrible booking, and he's still a relatively credible champion that luckily survived a couple of outings with Brock Lesnar without getting beat. So seeing the misery that they've made of Cedric and Shelton, it's like they could have just kept them all together. It was so pointless to even break them up at all, and it could have offered a lot of great backup for Lashley, and they should have been champs and stayed champs for a while. That group should have just gotten some wins and been strong and been formidable. There's no reason they can't at least rival the Shield, in terms of their toughness and their resume and their ability. I guess Cedric would be the weak link in that, but look what Seth and Dean Ambrose turned out to be. So if they booked them a little bit tougher and a little bit stronger, like some of their previous successful factions, I think the Hurt Business could be huge, and Shelton and Cedric could have a much better spot on the card right now, and Shelton could be rejuvenated as a big, impressive, scary veteran that can still mess you up good. So I think they just dropped the ball horribly. It's just sad to see them come out. So this is going to be Shelton taking on Damien Priest. Damien Priest doesn't lose, so you know the way this one's going. It's a fun match, but reckoning for the win, big surprise. And then Damien Priest gets on the mic, and he basically, this is the other tease I was trying to remember earlier. And he says, I want a competitor. I want a challenger that can actually compete with me, or whatever the fuck. Basically kind of demands a world champion caliber guy to come take the title from him. So basically an open challenge. So there's option number one for Cody, and we saw nothing. Finn Balor, however, does come out and says, sure, how about next week? So that match, I guess, is on Priest and Balor next week, but Balor seemingly formed a tag team earlier on in the night. So I think maybe something will happen here, DQ or something. Balor will get worked over, and then Champa will make the save or something like that. That's my guess. After that, we get Reginald and a Reginald and Dana segment. Now, last week, Reginald, poor guy, got stuck in the friend zone. But once he realized he was zoned, he decided to roll up Dana and beat her for the title in like a restaurant or something. So now he's coming out to the ring. He brings her out. He apologizes, and he says he changed his mind. And he basically lays down. They replay Bash at the Beach 2000. He lays down like Jeff Jarrett and tells Dana Brooke to pin him. I was waiting for Vince Russo to come out and cut a scathing promo on Dana Brooke about not doing business. And she thinks he's going to let her pin him, but he kind of kicks out, and then she tries to do it again, and he kicks out. And the third time, this time she plants a big kiss on him, which basically paralyzes him, and she's able to pin him, and she wins the championship, and then the jobbers run out. Tozawa actually wants a kiss from Tamina. Man, they got to abort this thing with Tozawa now, because if this guy's contract ever runs out or he's released, he's almost unsavable now because of this nonsense that he's been doing. You put him in AEW, nobody's going to take him seriously. He's going to have to really change. He needs to shed this nonsense at some point. Otherwise, he's a joke. Bianca Belair promo was up next. I love Bianca. I wish WWE would let her spread her wings a little bit more and just, speak like a regular person. Let her maybe write her own promos, what she would want to say to Becky if this was a real girl-on-girl rivalry here, and maybe give her some sort of, I don't know, a little bit of freedom in what she says, because it sounds so inauthentic when it's just obviously scripted. She has great delivery. She has a great voice. I really like everything about her. But I feel like when she came out, it was like during her entrance, I'm like, okay, she's facing Becky, so she's going to get on the mic, run through some scripted shit about how she's going to win the title. Then Becky's music's going to hit, and then she's going to come out and say the same thing. And that was going to be, our first segment in the build on the road to this match between them. So it was predictable and formulaic, and you knew what was going to happen. You knew what was going to happen before fucking halfway through her song, through her making her entrance down there. And so she comes out, says she's going to win. Of course, Becky comes out. She talks shit back. And then after they're done talking shit, Doudrop comes out, and we get a match between Bianca Belair and Doudrop, which Bianca wins with a KOD. It was impressive. Now, I think she's done it one other time to Doudrop as well. Just incredible. And such a strong athlete. And Becky was on commentary for this whole thing. So that was annoying too. So not the best segment there. But what I would like is that, I appreciate Bianca being like, look, what happened at SummerSlam is not going to happen again. You're not going to have it that easy. I know you're coming this time, and I think you're scared to face me face to face. It would be fun if it took a little bit of a more serious or maybe even perhaps violent turn. What the three of the girls did a couple years ago when it was Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte, and they had that great segment backstage where the cops were involved and they were arrested and put in the car, and one of them's kicking out the cop car window and they're screaming at each other and tearing, trying to just rip the faces off of each other. I mean, you felt that. That was one of the best segments they've done in the last 10 years. And we've already seen the other bullshit between these two. They've had a couple of matches and Becky's escaped. At this point, I think it would be nice if Bianca just took one more step, because I don't want to just do a carbon copy of what you did last year. Make this year a little bit different for her. Maybe she's got to get a little bit more badass. Maybe she's got, take the earrings off and, and take the gloves off and really, knuckle up with this girl and teach her a fucking lesson and maybe even bloody her up or something. Doesn't seem like it's WWE style with this program, but I think, being able to like relate to that a little bit more, especially with Bianca, would be more fun if Becky just continues to troll her or whatnot, and then maybe does something really dastardly to her. I've tossed out the idea of somebody cutting off the braid before, maybe not something that extreme, but something close to that. Maybe Becky enlists Rollins to beat the shit out of Montez. Maybe they do a segment where Owens and Rollins are backstage and Becky enters the room and she goes, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And then you just go to commercial and end it. And then when you come back, Montez Ford is laid out in the backstage locker room and he's been injured, break his leg or something, and that would fuel Bianca. Then she confronts Becky. "I know what you did, girl," that kind of thing. And then Becky could be like, "I swear I didn't, but it was on fucking camera. You're caught," and that would really fuel Bianca and maybe make her see red and tear the damn red hair right out of Becky's head. It'd be fun. So unfortunately, I just don't think WWE wants to have any fun. And I think they just kind of want to go with the status quo. They want every entrance. They want every promo. They want most of these angles, more or less, to be the same. And I think that's boring and lazy. So when I see an opportunity where you can have a little fun, change things up, change the dynamic of a feud that's already been existing and has been good, but hasn't really been setting anything on fire. And it's been pretty good in the long term of them being able to actually, continue this path and make sure that Bianca does redeem herself from SummerSlam. I'm hoping that was WWE's intent all along. I question it. I'm not sure if they have that in them, but I hope it was. Either way, it better goddamn end with Bianca winning the title at WrestleMania because they got a star in her. After that, Edge promo. Comes out to the ring, sits in a chair, runs through all of his WrestleMania accomplishments, mentions specific matches and opportunities that he had, and expresses his extreme desire to work this year's WrestleMania, lays down a challenge to everyone, anybody. And there's another one. Here's an opportunity for potentially Cody. I don't recall Cody and Edge having that much of a history if they've crossed paths in 2007 through 2010 or whatever it was. Perhaps, but it could potentially be a big match. It could. I think there's a little bit more of a better story to be told with somebody like Seth Rollins, but Edge could work. He dropped hints of Cody Rhodes along with Finn Balor and, of course, along with AJ Styles, who everybody expects him to wrestle. That's the match I want. I think that's the match that is the fairest. I think both guys deserve that. I think it's always probably been Edge's dream to work with AJ, probably even more so than Cody. So Edge, I'm 100% confident will be the opponent AJ will be the opponent for Edge. And those guys I feel much better about. I feel better about Edge and AJ than I do about Becky and Bianca, because I think their stuff will be a little bit less scripted, and I just wish that WWE allotted Bianca and Becky maybe the same freedoms they're probably going to give Edge and AJ in this whole thing, and give them a chance. Give them a chance to do their own shit. See what happens. Doesn't work, then lesson learned. Don't ever do it again. Script everything. It's not like you're not already doing that. But at least give them a chance. And I think Edge, when they finally do this, because again, there was no reason to bring out AJ tonight. Slow burn, man. WrestleMania is still a ways off. You got some time to play with it. So maybe next week you do it again, or AJ comes out. Maybe Edge is not even there. And AJ accepts the challenge in a promo. "I'll take you on, Edge." And then we don't even get the two of them in the ring together for 2 more weeks. It's possible. And then you're off and running with whatever you want to do there. And then in the main event, we had RK Bro versus Rollins and Owens. What a great tag team these guys are turning out to be. They win. Get the win in a great main event, fun main event, great match all the way around. And now they are inserted to that 3-way coming up in 2 weeks. And they might actually have a chance to win the championships going into WrestleMania. I'm still expecting RK Bro to implode. That's what we thought anyway, and we were going to get Orton versus Riddle. But if that's going to happen, they're probably going to need to do that soon. So perhaps in 2 weeks, when RK Bro seemingly falls short, that could be where it happens. Maybe that's where the RKO happens. You would think that Riddle is so in love with Randy Orton that it's going to take more than just an RKO. They might go in the direction with these two guys that I was just pitching for Bianca and Becky. because Riddle seems like he'll take an RKO and he'll still be in love with Randy. It's okay, Randy. I know, just the heat of the moment. RKO, RK bro, whatever. But if Orton goes a little bit overboard, if he RKOs him, but then continues the assault with a chair, again, I know WWE is terrified of the idea of blood, but perhaps you open him up or you do something to severely injure him. Crush his foot in the stairs. Remember when Undertaker and Kane did the thing to Vince's foot? Do that to Riddle's foot. Do something that solidifies 1,000% that your friend has turned on you and there is no chance for you guys to be together, and do something that maybe makes Matt Riddle turn that corner, where he understands he's been betrayed, he's been heartbroken, and, that sadness is eventually going to maybe turn to rage, and him and Randy Orton can have a fucking banger at WrestleMania. So we'll see if that happens in 2 weeks. And that was basically the end of the show. So no Cody, but we did get Logan Paul. So that was something. And that's that. So, yeah, we're heading into WrestleMania. Things are looking good. Things are looking, I guess, decent. Maybe not good. Probably not a bad, probably a bad description. Let me cruise over to the chat, re-answer some questions, and knock out a super chat or two. Luigi DeRaw Gaming, thank you for the $10. If Cody shows up to feud with Drew, I would die if he comes out as Happy Cody, stupid hat and Hawaiian shirt, and only to mess with the IWC. Boy, that's a mouthful, man. That just the very idea of that is a little scary to think about. No. Yeah, but if he came out and did something with McIntyre, that would be okay. There's a lot of guys he could potentially feud with. I just think if Cody is going to make a change this massive in his career, he'd have to be almost ensured that he's going to be a championship contender, like a world title contender. And Drew might be a good place to start. You knock off McIntyre, Cody and McIntyre. Drew wasn't even on my radar. It's an excellent idea. Cody and McIntyre could be, that could be a big statement win for Cody. Maybe he can't just come right in and upset and win the title on his first night in the company. Maybe you got to get some wins first, Maybe a solid, clean win over McIntyre with the Crossroads in the middle would be a good place to start. Not bad. Deshaun, thank you, man. Appreciate the $2. Got an idea for Cody's return. This won't happen, but the Creed brothers just won the Dusty Classic. What if Cody bought Diamond Mine, brought them to the main roster with Bivens and Roderick Strong? Cody wins Money in the Bank and beats Brock or Roman for the title. That's a lot, too. People have mentioned NXT before, I guess because of Dusty, but I don't know if Cody... he's pretty hot right now. He's got a lot of buzz and stuff. I don't think he would want to switch companies and work on a show that gets less ratings than the ratings he's already getting. You know what I mean? I feel like he wouldn't make this move unless it was going to be better for his career, unless what he wants to do is be a coach and work alongside Shawn, and unless he wants to be a part of that whack-ass system down there. I don't think he does. I think he's trying to further his career as best he can. But the idea of him maybe coming in and forming a faction can be fun. I don't trust WWE they released Hit Row right when they brought him up. I just worry they'd ruin anything Diamond Mine did. But winning Money in the Bank and using that as a way to get the world title, could be fun for Cody too. I'd be into Money in the Bank for sure. Orton could punt Riddle. Thank you. Don't know why I didn't think of that. Makes sense. Oh, nice, Willow. Yeah, you got to see Austin when you were 12. I was going to so many WWE shows. I saw Austin win the WWE title twice in 1999 at WrestleMania 15 and the night after King of the Ring. And I got to see him at a ton of house shows. I was ringside for a couple of these shows and watched him work up close and personal and saw some of his greatest moments. Even early in 97, I was at some shows when he was IC champion shit, coming off of his injury from Owen Hart. So I saw Austin at his best up close and personal, so I'm satisfied with everything Austin did. So I'm not, I'm still not against him coming back and working a Mania match, though, especially if he gets a chance to work with somebody like a Kevin Owens or a Rollins. It can be fun. I'm cool with it. It's WrestleMania. WrestleManias are weird. You do weird shit. You bring back legends. It's what they do. But anyway, I got to get out of here now, guys. We've been going for a while, and I got a lot to do. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate all of your support. with everything going on. And like I said, I'll probably be absent now for about a week on the channel unless, something happens and I can be up here sooner. So for right now, let's go ahead and count me out for Wednesday on the watch along, but don't completely count me out. Might perhaps be up. So make sure you subscribe, shoot me a follow on Twitter, and thanks again for listening tonight, and I will catch you guys as soon as I can be back. The minute I am able to come on camera live and speak to you, I will be here.